The only reason I rented that old Victorian house was because I couldn't afford anything else. In San Francisco, cheap rent usually meant one of three things: the neighborhood was terrible, the apartment was the size of a closet, or something had happened there that scared everyone away. This place checked none of those boxes. It sat on a quiet hill overlooking the bay, surrounded by colorful Victorian homes and flowering trees. The porch was freshly painted, the windows were spotless, and the backyard looked like something from a gardening magazine. It was almost suspiciously perfect. "You're really going to live there?" my best friend, Mia, asked while helping me unload boxes from her SUV. "Unless you've secretly become a millionaire and want to pay my rent." She laughed nervously. "I just heard stories." "What kind of stories?" She shrugged. "People don't stay here very long." I rolled my eyes. "In California, every old house has ghost stories." "Maybe." She glanced toward the second-floor window. "But I swear I just saw someone watching us." I looked up. Nothing. Just lace curtains moving gently in the afternoon breeze. By sunset, Mia left, promising to call later. I stood alone in my new home. The silence felt comfortable. Not lonely. Just occupied. As if the house had been waiting for someone. I spent the next few hours unpacking boxes, assembling cheap IKEA furniture, and trying to convince myself that instant noodles counted as dinner. Around 9 o'clock I finally collapsed onto the couch. My muscles ached. My stomach growled. I should have bought groceries. The words had barely left my mouth when I heard it. Clink. Metal against ceramic. From the kitchen. I froze. Another sound. A cabinet door closing. Then. Water running. Every horror movie I'd ever seen suddenly replayed inside my head. I slowly grabbed the nearest weapon. A wooden broom. Not exactly impressive. Holding it like a baseball bat, I crept toward the kitchen. The faucet was running. No one was there. I swallowed hard. Hello? Silence. If someone's breaking into my house. Nothing. Could you at least pay part of the mortgage? The water instantly shut off. I blinked. Okay. That was new. I cautiously stepped inside. Everything looked normal. Until I noticed something sitting on the kitchen island. A plate. I was absolutely certain it hadn't been there 30 seconds earlier. Steam still floated from the food. Perfect grilled salmon. Roasted baby potatoes. Fresh asparagus. Everything smelled incredible. I stared at it for nearly a full minute. Nope. I backed away. I'm not eating mysterious ghost salmon. The room remained silent. I grabbed my phone and ordered fast food instead. Delivery time. 75 minutes. I looked back at the perfectly cooked meal. Then at the delivery estimate. Then back again. Fine. I picked up the fork. If I die. I hope whoever haunts this place has decent taste. One bite. I closed my eyes. Oh. It wasn't just good. It was restaurant quality. No. Better. The salmon practically melted in my mouth. The vegetables were perfectly seasoned. Even the potatoes had crispy edges with soft centers. I finished everything. Every single bite. Then instinctively looked around the empty kitchen. Compliments to the chef. Nothing happened. Feeling slightly embarrassed, I washed the plate by hand. Halfway through scrubbing it, the sponge suddenly slipped from my fingers. It floated. Not dramatically. Just lifted itself. The plate gently drifted from my hands. The faucet turned on. Soap appeared. The dish washed itself. I slowly stepped backward. Nope. The sponge continued cleaning. The plate dried itself with a towel. Then every item quietly returned to its proper place. Exactly where they belonged. I stared. Either I'm hallucinating. Or I just found the world's most helpful ghost. That night, sleep refused to come. Every tiny creak made me open my eyes. Around 2 in the morning I heard soft footsteps upstairs. Not loud. Almost careful. Like someone didn't want to wake me. Instead of feeling terrified, I felt strangely safe. The footsteps stopped outside my bedroom. There was a pause. Then a quiet knock. 1, 2, 3. I sat up. Come in? The door slowly opened by itself. Nothing stood there. Just the dark hallway. Then something floated inside. A thick blanket. It gently landed across my legs. The bedroom door quietly closed. I touched the blanket. It was warm. Fresh from a dryer. For the first time since moving to California. I smiled. Good night. I whispered into the darkness. I guess. A cool breeze brushed across my face. Not cold. Comforting. Like someone had smiled back. The next morning I woke to the smell of fresh coffee. Real coffee. Not the instant powder I'd packed. I stumbled into the kitchen. A mug waited beside a plate of fluffy pancakes topped with strawberries and maple syrup. Next to it lay a folded napkin. Written in elegant handwriting were 5 simple words. Good morning, Miss Harper. Welcome home. I stared at the note. Then looked around the empty kitchen. Slowly. A grin spread across my face. Well. I picked up the coffee. This is definitely going to be an interesting lease. For the next 3 days, I didn't see my mysterious roommate. At least, not directly. But every morning, breakfast appeared on the kitchen table. Every evening, dinner was waiting when I got home. And somehow, the house stayed spotless. I tested it. On purpose. One night I left 3 dirty plates in the sink. The next morning they were gone. The counters sparkled. The floor looked freshly polished. Even my shoes had been lined up neatly by the front door. Okay, I said while drinking coffee. This is either the nicest ghost in history. Or I'm being adopted. The house remained silent. Still, I could feel someone listening. Not in a creepy way. More like a roommate pretending not to eavesdrop. A week later my curiosity finally won. I grabbed a yellow sticky note and placed it on the kitchen table. Thank you for the food. Also, who are you? I left for work. The entire day I couldn't stop thinking about it. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe stress from moving had finally broken my brain. Maybe there would be no answer. When I got home that evening, the smell of garlic and rosemary greeted me from the doorway. A roast chicken sat in the center of the table. Beside it was my note. And another one. My heartbeat quickened. The handwriting matched the note from the pancake breakfast. Elegant. Careful. Old-fashioned. My name is Oliver Bennett. I nearly dropped the paper. There really was someone. Well, not exactly someone, but definitely something. I quickly grabbed a pen. Nice to meet you, Oliver. How old are you? The next morning another note waited beside my coffee. I was born in 1898. I nearly choked. Wow. A new line had been added beneath it. You appear younger than that. I laughed so hard coffee almost came out of my nose. For the first time since moving in, the house felt alive. Not haunted. Alive. Over the following weeks our conversations became longer. Every morning and every evening we exchanged notes. Sometimes they were practical. Sometimes ridiculous. One night I asked, "What did you do before becoming a ghost?" The reply came the next day. Architect. Terrible golfer. Excellent cook. Fair enough. Another day I asked, "How did you learn to cook like this?" His answer. My mother insisted every gentleman should know how to prepare dinner. She was correct. I couldn't argue with that. The man could turn leftover vegetables into a 5-star meal. The strangest part was how normal everything became. Most people would panic if they discovered they lived with a ghost. I started asking mine for advice. When my Wi-Fi stopped working, I complained out loud. The router restarted itself. When a shelf collapsed, the screws floated through the air and repaired it. When I accidentally locked myself out of the bathroom, the door quietly unlocked itself. Thanks, Oliver. A nearby lamp flickered once. Apparently that meant you're welcome. Then came the job disaster. I worked as a junior financial analyst for a tech company downtown. The pay wasn't great. The hours were awful. But I needed the money. Unfortunately, my supervisor was even worse. Her name was Vanessa Cole. Vanessa came from money. She wanted everyone to know it. Designer clothes. Luxury car. Constant reminders that she attended an expensive private university. And for some reason, she absolutely hated me. Every meeting felt like a competition I didn't know I had entered. One Thursday afternoon she dumped a massive project onto my desk. We need this finished by Monday. I stared at the stack of reports. This is 2 weeks of work. Vanessa smiled. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Then she left early. Of course she did. That night I arrived home exhausted. For the first time in weeks, I didn't even notice dinner waiting on the table. I simply collapsed into a chair. A notebook slid across the table by itself. You appear unhappy. I sighed. My boss is trying to kill me. The pen on the table lifted. Legally? Despite myself, I laughed. No. The pen moved again. That is encouraging. I spent the next 20 minutes explaining the project. The deadlines. The spreadsheets. The impossible expectations. When I finished, the room became quiet. Then another message appeared. May I examine your calculations? I blinked. You understand spreadsheets? The pen paused. Then wrote. Numbers existed before computers. I assure you we used mathematics in 1928. I laughed. Fair point. I opened my laptop. Immediately the room temperature dropped a few degrees. The screen flickered. The cursor moved. On its own. My jaw slowly dropped. Cells opened. Charts appeared. Columns reorganized themselves. Formula after formula appeared faster than any human could type. For nearly an hour I sat frozen, watching an invisible ghost perform financial analysis. Finally the cursor stopped. A final note appeared in a blank spreadsheet cell. Your company spends money with the confidence of a drunken sailor. I have corrected several errors. I stared at the screen. Then at the empty room. Then back at the screen. The report looked incredible. Professional. Elegant. Perfect. Oliver. The ceiling light flickered. I think you may have saved my career. A cool breeze drifted through the kitchen. And for just a moment, I thought I heard a quiet chuckle. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept thinking about the spreadsheet. No one could finish a project like that in a single evening. Not even the senior analysts. Yet somehow, an architect who had died nearly a century ago had done it without touching a keyboard. The next morning, I walked into the office carrying my laptop like it contained state secrets. The conference room slowly filled with department managers. Vanessa sat across from me, sipping her overpriced vanilla latte with the confidence of someone who already believed the promotion belonged to her. Our director, Michael Foster, entered last. "All right," he said. "Let's see what we've got." I connected my laptop to the large monitor. The dashboard appeared. A colorful financial model filled the screen, complete with interactive charts, risk forecasts, and projected revenue scenarios. The room became completely silent. Michael leaned forward. "Did you build this?" "Yes, sir." He looked at every chart carefully. Then at me. "This is senior-level work." Vanessa's smile disappeared. She immediately stood. "Actually, Michael, Emily and I collaborated on this. I created the original framework before leaving yesterday." I slowly turned toward her. That was a lie. She hadn't contributed a single formula. Michael nodded thoughtfully. "Oh. Then perhaps you can explain the forecasting model." Vanessa walked confidently toward the screen. She clicked one chart. Then another. Her expression slowly changed. The formulas weren't simple. They were brilliant. She stared at the screen for several uncomfortable seconds. "Well." She forced a smile. "The algorithm uses a several statistical." She stopped. Because she had absolutely no idea what she was looking at. The conference room grew painfully quiet. Suddenly, the cursor moved. By itself. My heart nearly stopped. "No. Oliver. Please. Not here." A hidden comment box suddenly appeared on the screen. Someone had changed its font color from white to black. One sentence slowly typed itself in elegant cursive. She contributed exactly 3 emails, 2 coffee breaks, and 1 early departure. The room froze. Vanessa's face turned bright red. Michael blinked twice. "Emily?" I slammed my laptop shut so quickly the projector disconnected. "My apologies, sir. My computer has been acting strangely." Several people exchanged confused looks. Vanessa looked like she had seen a ghost. Ironically, she wasn't completely wrong. Michael cleared his throat. "Well, whatever software produced this report, I'd like everyone else to start using it." A few people laughed. Vanessa didn't. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. As everyone left, Michael stopped beside my desk. "I've been looking for someone to lead our new financial strategy team." He smiled. "I think I just found that person." I could barely breathe. A promotion. Almost double the salary. Health insurance. Stock options. Everything I'd been working toward. After he walked away, Vanessa stormed over. "What was that?" "What?" "You embarrassed me." "I didn't say anything." "You planned this." I shrugged. "I thought you helped create the report." She glared at me. For a second I thought she might throw her coffee. Instead she leaned closer. "You don't deserve this." Then she walked away. That evening I stopped at a local grocery store. Instead of buying frozen dinners, I filled my basket with fresh vegetables, prime steak, homemade bread, and a bottle of California red wine. When I opened the front door, warm light filled the old house. Jazz music drifted softly from somewhere upstairs. The kitchen smelled amazing. "Oliver?" A frying pan lifted itself onto the stove. Butter melted. Fresh garlic began sizzling. I smiled. "I guess that's a yes." I placed the grocery bags on the counter. "You know, I got promoted today." The knife paused in midair. Then continued chopping vegetables. "I couldn't have done it without you." Silence. A notepad slowly slid toward me. The pen lifted. "You solved the problem." "I merely organized the numbers." I laughed. "That's a very humble way of saying you performed corporate magic." The pen hesitated. Then wrote. "Mathematics should never be magical. It should simply make sense." Dinner that night was incredible. Grilled ribeye. Garlic mashed potatoes. Roasted asparagus. Fresh sourdough. Halfway through eating, I remembered something. "Oliver." The lights flickered gently. "How did you die?" Everything stopped. The knife. The pan. Even the music. For several long seconds. Nothing moved. Then the pen slowly wrote 3 words. "Heart failure." Another pause. 30 years old. I frowned. "That's young." The answer came more slowly this time. "I was preparing dinner. I never finished it." Something in those words felt unbearably lonely. For nearly 100 years. He had stayed in this house. Cooking meals no one ate. Waiting for someone who never came home. I quietly reached across the table and placed my hand beside the notebook. "I'm glad I moved in." The room became completely still. A warm breeze drifted across my shoulder. Not cold. Not ghostly. Comforting. Like someone sitting beside me. The following weekend curiosity got the better of me. I visited the San Francisco Historical Archive. An elderly librarian helped me search through old newspaper records. After nearly an hour she found it. October 1928. A faded black and white photograph showed a handsome young man standing beside the very house where I now lived. Oliver Bennett. Architect. Community volunteer. Local philanthropist. Engaged to marry a schoolteacher named Eleanor Hayes. The newspaper headline read, "Local architect dies suddenly hours before wedding announcement." My chest tightened. The article explained that Oliver had collapsed while preparing a surprise dinner for Eleanor. He never regained consciousness. After his death, the house was never sold. Eleanor left California 6 months later. She never returned. I quietly folded the newspaper copy. For the first time, I understood why Oliver never left. He wasn't trapped by the house. He was trapped by a promise that had never been fulfilled. And somehow, I had become the first person in nearly 100 years to make this lonely place feel like home again. Monday morning started better than any Monday I could remember. My promotion became official. I had my own office, a new company laptop, and a salary that almost made me forget how close I had been to moving back into my parents' tiny apartment. On my way home, I stopped at a bakery and bought 2 slices of chocolate cake. One for me. One for Oliver. It had become our strange little tradition. I'd leave dessert on the table, and by morning the plate would be empty while the entire house smelled faintly of vanilla. Apparently ghosts appreciated good pastries. When I unlocked the front door that evening, something felt wrong. The house was silent. Not peaceful. Empty. No music. No smell of dinner. No warm lights. Just silence. Oliver? Nothing. I walked into the kitchen. A single envelope rested on the dining table. It wasn't addressed to me. It was from the city of San Francisco. Inside was a bright red notice. Property acquired for redevelopment. My stomach dropped. A private development company had purchased most of the properties on the block. The remaining homeowners were being pressured to sell. Demolition was scheduled in less than 2 months. No. I whispered. They can't. A cold breeze swept through the room. The lights flickered once. Oliver knew. That night I searched everything I could about the company. Golden Horizon Development. Luxury condominiums. Boutique hotels. Historic buildings demolished without hesitation. According to the plans, my house would become part of an underground parking garage. Parking spaces. They wanted to replace a century-old home with parking spaces. I slammed my laptop shut. No. The notebook slid toward me. Oliver's handwriting appeared. It is only a building. I stared at the words. No. It's your home. The pen stopped moving. After several seconds another sentence appeared. It was. I shook my head. It still is. The next afternoon I visited City Hall. After waiting nearly 2 hours, a clerk finally explained the situation. If enough owners refuse to sell, she said, the project becomes much more complicated. I already own my house. She nodded. But several neighboring properties have already signed. Who convinced them? She looked through the paperwork. A consultant named Vanessa Cole. My blood froze. Vanessa. Of course. She had left our company a week earlier. Apparently Golden Horizon had hired her. She wasn't just bitter. She wanted revenge. That evening, someone knocked on my front door. When I opened it, Vanessa stood there wearing an expensive beige coat and holding a folder. She smiled the same fake smile I remembered from the office. Emily. I hear congratulations are in order. What do you want? She held up the folder. Just business. She stepped inside without waiting for permission. I represent Golden Horizon now. They're prepared to offer you well above market value. I don't want to sell. You haven't heard the number. I don't care. She looked around the old dining room. You know this place is falling apart. It isn't. She laughed. It has no future. A wine glass suddenly slid 3 inches across the table by itself. Vanessa froze. Did you see that? I calmly picked up the glass. It wasn't level. She didn't believe me. As she continued talking, another strange thing happened. Every picture frame she criticized became perfectly straight. Every chair she bumped into quietly returned to its place. The old grandfather clock behind her began ticking loudly despite not having worked since I moved in. Oliver wasn't trying to scare her. He was annoyed. I could almost imagine him silently correcting her manners. Finally, Vanessa reached into her folder. If you refuse, the city can make your life very difficult. Before she could place the contract on the table, every page suddenly flew out of the folder. Hundreds of papers exploded through the room like white birds. Vanessa screamed. The papers spun around her in a perfect circle before gently falling back onto the floor. Not one touched me. She stared at the mess. Then at me. You. Her voice trembled. There's something wrong with this house. I smiled. I've always thought there was something very right about it. She backed toward the door. I'll be back. I doubt it. The front door opened by itself, then closed immediately after she ran outside. The deadbolt quietly locked. I couldn't help laughing. That was dramatic. The kitchen cabinet opened. A coffee mug floated onto the counter. A kettle switched itself on. Apparently Oliver agreed. Later that night, I sat alone on the porch watching the lights across the bay. I don't know how to stop them. For a long time there was no answer. Then the front door creaked open. The notebook landed beside me. The pen wrote slowly. There may be another way. What way? The basement. I frowned. What basement? Another sentence appeared. The original plans included a hidden archive beneath the workshop. No one knows it exists. A strange feeling settled over me. What did you hide down there? The pen stopped. Then, one careful word at a time, Oliver answered. Everything. Architectural drawings. Letters. Personal journals. Property deeds. Even his original ownership documents. If they were still there after nearly a century, they could change everything. I slowly looked toward the old house behind me. Suddenly it felt much larger than before. Much older. As though it had been keeping one final secret. Tomorrow. We were going underground. The next morning, I called in sick. For the first time since starting my new position, work could wait. Some things were more important than quarterly reports. Oliver had spent almost a century protecting this house. The least I could do was help him protect it now. I grabbed a flashlight, a pair of work gloves, and followed the faded floor plans he had sketched overnight onto several sheets of paper. According to his notes, the entrance to the hidden basement wasn't actually in the basement. It was beneath the pantry floor. I removed a few old wooden shelves. Behind them lay weathered oak boards unlike the rest of the flooring. Here. The kitchen light blinked once. I carefully pried the boards loose. A cloud of dust rose into the air. Beneath them was an old iron ring attached to a square wooden hatch. My heart pounded. This has been here the whole time? The hatch slowly lifted by itself. A cool breeze drifted upward, carrying the scent of old paper and cedar wood. Oliver had already opened the way. The staircase creaked beneath every step. At the bottom stood a small underground room. It wasn't creepy. It was beautiful. Wooden shelves lined every wall. Rolls of blueprints filled one corner. Leather-bound journals rested neatly inside glass cabinets. An antique drafting table stood exactly where Oliver had left it almost 100 years ago. It looked as though he had simply stepped away for lunch. I slowly walked around the room. Everything had been preserved. A notebook floated off one shelf and landed gently in front of me. The first page read, Oliver Bennett, architect, builder of Bennett House. Beneath it was the original property deed. His signature. The city seal. Every document proving that this house had been built as a protected historical residence. Oliver. A warm breeze circled the room. You kept all of this? The pen beside the notebook lifted. I hoped someone would eventually need it. Within 2 days, the documents had reached the city's Historic Preservation Commission. Architects. Lawyers. Historians. Everyone wanted to examine the discovery. The original blueprints revealed construction techniques that no longer existed. Oliver's journals documented early earthquake-resistant engineering decades before it became common practice. Even more remarkable was a collection of letters from prominent California architects praising his work. One commissioner looked at me in disbelief. Do you realize what you've found? I smiled. I think my roommate did. A week later the decision became official. The Bennett House was designated a protected historic landmark. No demolition. No parking garage. No luxury apartments. Golden Horizon immediately lost the redevelopment rights. Vanessa's project collapsed overnight. She tried appealing the decision. She lost. She tried blaming the city. No one listened. Eventually she disappeared from the neighborhood altogether. For the first time since moving into the house, everything became quiet. Life slowly settled into a comfortable routine. I worked during the day. Oliver cooked dinner every evening. On weekends we restored different parts of the old house together. Well, I painted. He floated the tools. It was surprisingly efficient. Neighbors began complimenting the renovations. Some even joked that I must have hired an incredible contractor. I always smiled. You could say that. One rainy evening I carried 2 mugs of hot chocolate into the living room. One for me. One for Oliver. I placed his mug on the coffee table. To my surprise, the mug slowly lifted. Not just a little. It rose completely into the air. A faint golden light began surrounding it. Then, the room changed. The cold air disappeared. The shadows softened. Standing beside the fireplace was a man. Not transparent. Not frightening. Simply there. Tall. Dark brown hair. Kind amber eyes. A charcoal waistcoat with rolled-up sleeves. Exactly as he appeared in the old newspaper photograph. Oliver looked down at his own hands in complete disbelief. So. His voice was calm and warm. It appears I can finally say thank you properly. I couldn't speak. After months of notes. Flickering lights. Floating pans. Invisible conversations. I was finally meeting my roommate. Face to face. You have a nice voice, I whispered. He laughed. So I've been told. His smile was warm enough to light the room by itself. I never imagined I'd speak aloud again. You deserve to. He looked around the house. The polished floors. The restored staircase. The fresh flowers by the windows. You brought life back into this place. I shook my head. We did. For several quiet moments neither of us spoke. Rain tapped softly against the windows. The fireplace crackled. It felt normal. Like two old friends sharing the end of a long day. Finally Oliver looked toward the kitchen. I've been thinking. That usually means trouble. He smiled. The oven is still terrible. I burst into laughter. After everything we've been through. That's your biggest concern? It is an insult to proper cooking. I laughed so hard tears filled my eyes. Fine. We'll buy a new one. He nodded seriously. And perhaps new countertops. Slow down. And copper cookware. Oliver. And a proper espresso machine. I pointed a finger at him. You're spending my paycheck already. He folded his arms with mock dignity. Our paycheck. I smiled. Our paycheck. For the first time in nearly 100 years. The old Victorian house echoed with two voices instead of one. Outside, the fog rolled gently across the San Francisco hills. Inside, the lights glowed warmly through the windows. People walking by simply saw another happy home. They never guessed that one homeowner had a heartbeat. And the other had waited a century to find someone who finally made him feel alive again. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more original, emotional, mysterious, and heartwarming stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Please leave a like and let me know in the comments. What would you do if you discovered a ghost who cooked better than any chef and became your best friend? Your support helps this channel grow and inspires us to create even more amazing stories for you. See you in the next story.